was more than a march. It was more than the idea that I think some people have of like, oh, we just marching and chanting. Things were shifting energetically because everything is energy. Everything is frequency. And frequency shifts everything.
These kind of relationships that get disturbed when we don't take the time to know what it is to sing, to know how to get close to the mic again, but it's singing doesn't make it happen, or maybe.
Welcome. I have here, joining Tune the Fork, the wonderful, beautiful, talented Ayanna Gregory. How are you?
I'm great.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Every now and then I get this deep feeling of selfishness as it relates to Tune the Fork because I get so much from the process that I go through to learn about the guests that I have coming on. And even though, you know, most of the people who come on I know, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. And so in order to get to know a little bit more through the surface, I have to do research, I have to dig. And when I do that, I tell you, the downloads, all of that just start coming, and I start connecting these dots and things just start making sense about how to see certain things. And when I was going through that process with you, I was like, wow, how can I give back in a way to make her at least feel like there's this equilibrium of shared positivity and growth and change in each other. And I hopefully through this process at the other end, I'll be able to share just a piece of what I got from learning about you through here, through the process. So that was a mouthful, but I think I'm gonna stop there. How have you been doing? Well, let me take a step back. For those of you who don't know, Ayanna Gregory is the daughter of the late legendary human being enigma known as Dick Gregory.
Yes.
He was known as many things, and I think through the process of me just being an outside observer, he was just a beautiful soul, a beautiful spirit. And what you got from him was just probably more of a reflection of what you thought about yourself or whatever the case may be. But through being one of the 10 children, where do you fit in the lineup? I'm
the second to the baby.
Okay, so you're number 9?
I'm number 9 out of 10, but technically number 10 out of 11.
Okay.
Because really there were 11. After my first 2 oldest sisters were born, there was a son named Richard.
Okay.
A brother that we had named Richard, and he lived maybe a few months old. And so I am doing a better job of acknowledging him. You know, I'm so used to saying there's 10. My siblings are like, no, there are 11. You know,
I got
so
you.
We honor him. So I'm number 10 out of 11. So for all intents and purposes, I'm the baby, because even though my brother's younger than me, everybody treats me as the baby. So.
Now, the oldest is how much older?
So there's a 14-year span.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a 14-year span. So my oldest sister, Michelle, was born in 1959, and Johanse was born in 1973.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know what year you were born. Do you say what year you were born?
71.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Through the process of being a part of this family, this force, you guys were grown. You guys were raised initially in Chicago? Mm-hmm. And how long were you living there before you guys?
Not even 2 years.
Okay.
So I don't remember Chicago.
So most of your early time was spent when you moved where?
To Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Okay. And in that age range of being the youngest, well, some of the other ones were born while you guys were in Plymouth, right?
Well, no, everyone was born, most of us were born in Chicago. My older sister was born in St. Louis, but the rest of us were born in Chicago. Johanse was like 3 weeks old
Okay.
when we moved.
So you had really no idea what the culture difference was moving from there to there, but you're older.
Oh, they went through major shifts. Yeah, they did not. Nobody wanted to move.
What was life like as a child growing up the daughter of Dick Gregory?
Man, that shit was fun.
Was it?
It was fun. It was so much fun. It was kind of wild because we were like an experiment of my dad's. You know, he was so ahead of his time. He was making it up as he went, literally. So imagine having the imagination of a child, genius level of brilliance, a deep love for humanity, and just a fearlessness. And you happen to have a wife and 10 kids, making it up as you go.
Yeah.
Like, some amazing things are gonna happen. So, and some scary things are gonna happen. And so it was such a combination. So there were so many different sectors of my life.
Okay.
There was home life with dad home. There was home life with dad gone. There was life on the road with dad around all these celebrities. There was life in the civil rights and human rights movement, particularly down south. There was life at school in white world. There were like so many worlds that had to try to integrate as best they could. So life at home with the just with the kids, with us, it was fun. I mean, we grew up on 300 acres of land. Wow. It was us and nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 10 black kids coming from the south side of Chicago, rolling up on some land.
Did y'all have a lot of neighbors?
No.
So you went to school there, I'm assuming. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what was the demographics like in the schools?
All white.
Okay.
They say we integrated the town when we got there. That was the running joke.
Do you know why your dad and mom picked Massachusetts?
Dad, I'm still asking. I'm still wondering. We still don't know this.
Yeah, okay. So,
I mean, from what I'm told, he was like, we got to get out of Chicago. I can't remember all the reasons why. And so a friend of his, who's also pretty legendary in the holistic health world, a man named Victor Kolvinskis, who was one of Dad's holistic health mentors, told him about a house in New England, you know, that had all this land. So I think Dad was just open. I don't think he was set on Massachusetts. I think he was like, we got to get out of the city, and you know, we got to get back to nature. And I think it was just kind of like, almost like on a whim, that his friend Victor said, hey, look, there's a house here, there's a house there, you know, check them out. And Dad was just, you know, he was moving, you know, a zillion miles a minute. He was still, you know, doing so many things all around the world. It was just like, okay, we'll check that out. Matter of fact, they said that when we moved, they said that when we got there, that Dad kept looking for an additional floor that wasn't there. He literally thought that he had got a different house than the one we got. That's how much this man was moving.
Oh, wow.
He was like, wait, I thought it was already bought. So it just it just must have been meant to be, because there was really no logical reason that we would have ended up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, of all places. It really just was kind of like the spirits just said, that's where they're going.
Now, how long were you there before y'all moved somewhere else?
We never moved as a family. Everybody just kind of like went on off to college.
So you spent all
my entire childhood until I left for black college, praise God.
So what was it like going to grade school with people knowing, at least the adults knew? Was there an awareness of the children, just how prominent and famous, your dad? Like, so he was just
Children
dad.
didn't know.
Okay.
The children had no clue because we were in such a white environment. They had no clue. What they knew was that we had a famous dad. They didn't know why. So there was a little curiosity, like, what does your dad do? But no, the adults knew. The adults knew. So yeah, there was a little, and I mean, it was, you know, we encountered so much racism. I mean, overt racism as well as invisible. And so it was interesting, you know, because the kids kind of knew something. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I was more famous as a child. I mean, if I can say that word, not because of my dad, but because of the legend of my older siblings. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like these big families. You know what I mean? It's
So
like
they was
a
wrecking
reputation
shit?
is already there before you arrive. Like, oh, let's go down the list. Michelle, Lynn, Pamela, Paula, Steph. You know, and so every teacher has had, you know, at least 3-4 of your siblings, and they were serious leaders. And so
What kind of path did they pave for you, your siblings?
they were very bold. I was not as a child. I was very shy, very easily intimidated, afraid of my own power, not comfortable in my own shoes. So my older siblings, I just marveled at their boldness, you know, how they stood up to racism, how they boldly proclaimed their blackness. Particularly my sister Lynn. I mean, she was literally just like legendary in Chicago and in Massachusetts. I mean, she just, so they were, and for whatever reason, my siblings were very physically strong, always skinny. You know, we were like a skinny family, you know, so you'd see Lynn, you know, walking around with like a pack of boys behind her, and Lynn would be their leader, like literally, like, you know,
Wow.
we ride with Lynn. Where she go, we go. You know, she walked out of school, unintentionally started like a whole school walkout. Because in gym class, you know, it was like something the gym teachers were asking them to do, and she was like, I'm not having it. And they were like, Lynn, the other kids were like, whatever you do, we'll do. And it was like a whole school walkout, or, you know, at least a lot of the kids left out. So that was kind of the energy that preceded me. So that was really, you know, even before I came into my own, I loved knowing that I had all of these brothers and sisters older than me, that if I really, really needed somebody to roll up to that school and wreck shop, and my mom, you know, mom didn't play, you know, so there was all kind of racial incidents and things that happened in school, teachers pretending like they didn't see it, or teachers actually being the perpetrators of the overt racism that my mom had to deal with. It's like, yeah, you don't want this smoke. So I knew at least, even when I was like afraid to stand up for myself in a moment, I knew like I got some folk back home to back this up. You know.
So Lynn is how much older than you?
10 years older. She
Oh.
was like a second mom to me.
Oh, okay. So there are these two competing ideas about identity, and they're like essentially just all colliding or collapsing over one another as you grow up and as you're living your life and developing and all of that. And you've got these older siblings giving you a blueprint, I guess, in a way, that just through living, be bold in your blackness and embrace it and speak your truth. And when did you start to actually own that?
I would say high school.
Okay.
It took a while. There was a lot of spiritual things happening on the land. You know, my father was a very spiritual man, and we would do a lot of prayer and meditation. And my understanding of God, or the Most High, the Creator, was in nature. You know, so I began to spend a lot of time in nature. And my dad was a world-class runner. you know, before he became famous. Really, that was the first way that he became recognized was as a track star. And so he would train us, you know, as runners. You know, we were running early, and we used to run. It was a 4-mile run. It was like 2 miles to the state forest and 2 miles back to the house. So they were like mandatory runs we would have to do. But what it did for me is it eventually gave me it allowed me to hear my internal rhythm. And so I began to like spend more time on my own running, and had nothing to do with competition. That's why I think I did so poorly in track later, because the competition thing didn't work for me. It was really a spiritual experience. So I would spend all this time running, and then I would spend time in nature, and then like Stevie Wonder's music was like the musical backdrop to the spiritual evolution that was happening inside of me, where I was really reckoning with my power and why I was so uncomfortable with my voice, why I was afraid to be upright, and to you know, I was recognizing, like, you keep dumbing yourself down. Why? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of them? Are you afraid of you? You know, and so Stevie Wonder's music was a major part of my worthiness revolution, my spiritual revolution. I mean, I can't begin to tell you what, you know, because ultimately it's like I created a parallel universe for myself, because what I couldn't find in my physical, what I couldn't find in my social, cultural world, I co-created it somewhere else. I looked to other places. So that's why it was kind of like this bubble around me that I had created. So by high school, everything that I needed, I got it from somewhere, even if it wasn't in school, even if it wasn't among my peers. And so I think at that point, I had so much backup and so much fortification, along with the fact that at this point, okay, we are going on the road with Dad. We are traveling. We are experiencing the civil rights and human rights movement. So it's like, how can I be a punk here when we didn't face some folk down south where we could have lost our life? That they don't go. So then it was like, yeah, we do stand. We stand in it. We stand in what we live and what we represent. So yeah, no mousy voices anymore. I got a deep ass voice. I'm gonna speak that voice. Yeah. Because I couldn't stand my voice. I was like, I sound like a boy. Why do I sound? And so I would try to raise my pitch, you know, so I could sound like Ashley. I don't sound like Ashley. I sound like Ayanna. I used to not correct people, you know, oh, your name, oh my God, like it's so weird, it's different. I'd let them call me anything, you know? And so getting to a place where I could really stand in it, and then challenging teachers, you know, calling them out. Because that's that's weight, you know? It's like you represent all Black people. Yeah. So you gotta decide if because you're taking on more than that moment, you know? Now you have a target on your back. Now what is it, you know what I mean? I had to decide, in all throughout school, I never wanted to stand for the flag. We'd stand, I forgot about when we used to stand, pledge allegiance to the flag, I forgot all about that. But 7th grade was when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. 8th grade, it was like some days I did, some days I didn't. By 9th grade, I was like, I ain't doing this shit no more. I'm clear. So, and I'm ready for the heat if it comes. So I had to be, you know what I mean? It was like I wavered with it. Yeah. I wavered around it, flip-flopped, and then I was like, I'm good. We get to stand in this.
And when you did that, I'm assuming that like a weight kind of lifted in a way, and then you could just be in a way.
Not at first. When I did that initially, it was a lot of heat, you know, because it was more trouble for me. Okay. You know, in class, it was more trouble. It was more trouble with teachers that, oh, I thought we liked each other. Not when I call out your racism, though. Now it's not comfortable. Yeah. You know, so I had to give up some comfortability. I got you. And I'm a Libra. I love peace and harmony. And so sometimes I'll forgo the issue just because I don't want to rock the boat. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was very uncomfortable. And then I became comfortable being uncomfortable. But that took a while.
I understand the feeling of I was a very shy kid, like extremely shy, and I suffer from it. I don't want to say suffer. That doesn't sound right. There are parts of that I still find difficulty managing now. Maybe that's the same thing as struggle, but I don't know why I didn't want to use that word. Mm-hmm. But I didn't talk. I was very shy. I didn't like to tell people when I would eat. I couldn't even go to my mom and be like, hey, I'm hungry. I would just go sit in the corner and put my head down and then wait for somebody to ask me if I wanted something to eat. Wow. Or if I was ready. I never wanted to put myself in a position to express a need. Mm. And and it's crazy how, as I'm saying that, based on what you're saying, that kind of has tagged along throughout my whole life. Mm. And I've gotten a little bit better even with the Rizzy Cat conversation when we were talking about how hard it is to tell somebody that what you need. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things. And I connect that dot back to a kid just not having a lot of difficulty with that. But but being able to do it in certain areas, I think can give you an example of what it looks like to do it in other areas. Mm-hmm. So I think that's great that you actually did that. What's hard for me to comprehend on this side as you're talking is how you guys could be. Your father is a fascinating man. And I think his light shines so bright at times that, at least in terms of the attention that the deserved attention that he gets because of who he is and what he sacrificed, I always think about the kids. I always think about the wife. I always think about the people who may not necessarily get that same kind of visibility and what that is like for them, because they're still individuals. They're still moving with likes and wants and desires and interest and all of that. So when I for the purpose of this here, when I'm talking about like your dad, it really is only as an opportunity to reflect it back to how him being who he was impacted you. Yeah. In both positive, in all ways. In all ways. And so it's hard for me to imagine 10 black kids going to a school with the world's baddest motherfucker as their father, and none of that heat making its way to you guys in a direct way, or in a way that the kids at least perceive direct. Were you guys isolated in a way? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we were. In a lot of ways. Because of where we lived. If we had stayed in Chicago, it would have been completely different. I would have had a completely different childhood, I believe. Okay. Not to the extent of, the movement related stuff would have been the same. So that, that's huge. But in terms of just socially, culturally, and who I knew my dad to be, because my peers didn't know him. You know what I mean? So I didn't know the weight of who he was as a child. Whereas when we began to interact with, Martin Luther King's children, Malcolm's children, all of these other, children of, right? Their lives were extremely different from ours. They grew up in a light where everything was connected to, you know what I mean? I can't imagine that they were ever able to get away from, not that they would want to, but if they did, they couldn't. Jesse Jackson's children, you know what I mean? Like, there were always like in spaces where everyone recognized them as that, whereas growing up, that was not the case for us. And to the extent that I remember in traveling with Dad, I was a little confused, like, who are you? Like, this is my dad, but like people are going bananas. I remember being in Washington, D.C. in the 70s, and we were at some march or something, and there was this big crowd of people racing, I'm thinking like to get to somebody past us. So I'm like, Daddy, like, let's move out of the way, that, not realizing they're coming to him. And I'm just looking like, who are you? You know, and then being in his world, you're just like in a whirlwind, you're just trying to hold on because there's so much going on. It's lights, it's cameras, it's people who need things like, Dick, I'm, you know, this is a situation going on in Mississippi, this is going on, you know, and so you're just like, this is his world, you know, and then you get a little older and then you become a little more comfortable with that world. And so it's like you have all these different worlds and then you just compartmentalize. This is my life on the road. This is my life sitting in the dressing room with the Jackson 5. This is my life, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just, you had like 4 or 5 different worlds and then you just learn to integrate them somehow.
So in having the 4 or 5 different worlds, would you say, my mother told me something once at a funeral. She was like, no 2 children have the same parent. And I thought about that. It took me a while to really comprehend what that meant. And thinking about like your perspective, and I'm not asking you to speak about anything outside of yours, but having siblings that are that much older, I'm sure there are different vantage points because of the age difference and, you know, and all of that.
So different. The older ones experience so much more of the movement, you know? Like I have siblings who were at the March on Washington, the March on Washington in 1963. You know, I have siblings who at 4 and 6 years old marched and went to jail as babies. Those who were born in the 50s and 60s, you know, they had a very different experience. So we marched, we did things, but it wasn't 50s and 60s.
Yeah, that was a different kind of march.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so they lived a very different, and Dad was always, you know, he was taking them with him. And that was like that was also when different ones of us were born, also coincided with different levels of his financial abundance, his notoriety, and what he was famous for, you know? Because in the beginning, it's like he's this famous comedian.
Right. Then
it's civil rights. Then it's the Bahamian diet.
Yeah.
Then it's, you know what I mean? It's all these different things that people were like, oh, you know, then he was famous. He would be, you know, quote unquote, relevant again with the young people. Like, okay, they said his name on a house party. So they got talking about, oh, give me some of that Dick Gregory. Or then, you know what I mean? So it was like different stages. There were different things happening in his world that made whoever, you know, was around, you know, depending upon the age, you know, when I was little, there were certain things I wouldn't be able to understand. The older ones really understood.
Right.
You know, the death threats. I think we all knew that there was a sense of danger that we were in, but for whatever reason, no, I don't want to say for whatever reason, the God presence within us and around us, and that was just evident on the land on which we lived, was so profoundly powerful that literally when we left home, the doors were left open, were left unlocked. My father was listed in the, you know, in the yellow pages. When we had yellow pages. Mm-hmm. Anyone could call him. So he was like, you got a target on my back, America? Come get it.
You mentioned something earlier about something shifting in the nature, something shifting on the land when you were growing up. Is that what you just mentioned with that protective force or whatever? Is that what you were speaking to?
Yeah.
And even at a young age, you could feel that.
I could feel that. We knew somehow we were protected. We knew there were death threats. I didn't know at the time that there were actually assassination attempts on his life. We knew some things were explained to us, some things weren't.
Right.
Big Mike, who used to take care of us, he was killed. They were trying to kill my dad. They got Big Mike. I thought it was an accident, you know. So some things we knew, some things we knew that the phones were tapped. We used to make jokes. talking to the FBI on the phone. We used to call, we changed the acronym, Funky Booty Inspector. We talking on the phone, talking big smack. Here we are. What you want to know? What you want to hear?
What was your adolescent brain? How were you processing the fact that your dad was gone so much?
Initially, there was a little bit of, okay. So people would say, wow, you must miss him. And I was kind of ashamed to say, I don't know him well enough to miss him. That was something I never really wanted to say, because the reality was that he was gone most of the time. I got to know my dad much differently as I got older. But as a kid, he was home. He was in and out when he was home. I mean, I say that, but you remember different, certain times I'm like, no, Dad was actually home quite a bit, but I'm like, nah, Dad was gone most of the time, which he wasn't gone most of the time. But, so I didn't know him enough to miss him like Daddy. And so I think I felt bad about that, because I felt like I should have. But I didn't miss him when he was gone, and I had amazing experiences with him when he was home. And I also had experiences where I was like, when is he leaving? Yeah. Because he was always coming with a different plan, I mean, you enter the house and it's like, no transition. It's like, okay, boom, no meat. All the meat leave the house. No dairy products now. No white bread. No sugar. No, And so everybody's like, what the And so there's resentment there. Yeah. It's like, okay, when is he leaving so we can get back to business as usual? Right. And so there was that, so there were these, like, there was a lot of rebellion against some of the things that he was pushing, because there was no transition. And he was a first generation of a lot of these major revolutionary shifts. So he was just gangster style with it. This is out the house now. I think at one point, I can't remember what happened, but it was like he put something, I can't remember what was going on, but the punishment was, it was like chains put on the refrigerator. It was like, what's good? What's good, homie?
Now, you're a plant-based person, right?
Mostly. I'm not vegan because occasionally I eat fish. Okay. But my body really operates optimally with a completely vegan diet. So that's what my body wants. And so, but every now and then I may eat fish. Every now and then, like the sweets thing for me is, whew.
So are you talking about like pastries, cakes and stuff, or like candy?
Anything chocolate, not so much candy. I do every now and then cake, but mostly cakes, pastries, brownies, ice cream. That's like my thing. Okay. And so mostly it'll be plant-based desserts, but every now and then I'll just be like, I just want me some regular old ice cream. But my body suffers. It doesn't like that. So when we were rebelling, we rebelled, and like there's certain things I never had though. Like I never had a hamburger. I never had steak.
Even to this day?
No, I don't know what red meat tastes like.
Okay.
So when I was rebelling, it was like chicken, fish. It was like ice cream, pizza.
A Snicker.
That was you know what I mean?
Okay.
I remember, so I was telling somebody a funny story. We were in New York, and we had our whole thing. We had our whole process down for how to hide the food. And so we were in New York. I think we were staying at the Howard Johnson Hotel, and we had ordered. Dad left. We're like, okay, bye, Dad, bye. You got a speech to go to, something. We'll see you tonight. So someone had ordered pizza and like some chocolate layer cake. Homie came right back. So somebody out on the fire escape with the pizza, like they got drugs. It was like, it was like might as well have had like drugs, Somebody's on the fire escape with the pizza. We put the cake in the bathroom, in the bathtub. It closed the curtain. Dude goes right into the bathroom. I know he knew. He didn't say anything. That happened a lot too.
So he didn't call y'all out on it?
But I know he knew. I'm like, he went right into the bath. I know he saw that. I don't know if he saw that.
What do you think that was about?
I think he wanted to know what we were doing And I think he also wanted us to know that he knew without saying it. Because at the time, I didn't think he knew. But in retrospect, I'm like,
He had to. You could smell it,
of course
right?
he knew. Of course he knew. But then I think even with all the rebelling we did, you know, our diet had to be so much healthier than the average American, because I'm telling you, I've never had a hamburger.
Right.
I don't even know, and I never had a desire for it. So then because we were all very athletic. Everybody was extremely athletic. So how it came back around full circle for me, because you know, oftentimes if your parents are telling you you can't do it, that you want to do it.
You got to do it.
You got to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to own the why. So all of us owned our why at some point in our life. And so for me, it was high school when I was like really serious about track. And I realized when I'm eating dairy, I'm eating chicken, my body
Different.
was like, nah,
Yeah.
sluggish. It just wasn't doing it. But when I was completely meat-free and dairy-free, and eating, like doing the food combinations that he had us doing, you know, not eating after 8 and, you know.
Intermittent fasting before intermittent fasting was even a thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eating only fruit before, 12 noon and all that, drinking my water. Man, my body was like, this, homie, this right here. So I was like, okay, daddy was on to something. I can give him that.
Strange question, maybe. Have you ever disappointed your father?
Definitely.
What did that look like?
I'm trying to think. I just know whenever it happened, it was devastating, because it was so like, man, we never wanted to disappoint him. I'm trying to think as a kid,
Because he don't strike me like I'm a beat your ass kind of dude.
no, he didn't hit us.
Yeah, I didn't. I got that. I get the feeling that that was just some old slave shit that we used to do for some old crazy reason, and now there's another way and so that's one of the reasons why I was asking, like, what does that?
But honestly, I would rather and my mom didn't hit us much either, but she did spank us. But I would much rather her hit me than him just give a look. Because there was like, he was a force of nature. So there was like an energy of like, nobody wants the wrath of Dick Gregory. The world don't want it. We certainly don't want it. You know what I mean? Energetically, it was just like, if he gave the look, you were just like done. You were just done. So you didn't want to disappoint him. I never wanted to disappoint him. And I'm trying to think, like, as an adult.
What do you think because I'm
trying to think. I know I have disappointed him. Not major stuff, but, because I can remember times where he was like, upset about something that I said or did. But, and I would just in the moment be like, oh my God, my world is done. But it would kind of quickly blow over, and I realized, you can go online today and see like how many different ways can Dick Gregory curse somebody out.
Oh, it's a gang of them.
It's like, it's a wrap. So I think I also was like, well, you're kind of in good company, because he didn't curse at everybody he loved.
And shout out to the real black dude, because he would get in that brother's.
He'd catch it. He'd be catching it. You just know, look, I'm just get cussed out by my man today.
Listen, I've seen them all. At least the ones that are on the line.
And I never even got cussed out, like a cuss out. So I'm so sensitive, So my version of getting cussed out by dad didn't even compare to.
Just raising his voice or something.
Yeah. And I promise I cannot remember, like, I can't remember disappointing him. I can't remember a specific incident, but I know that I have. But I also know that it was bigger in my mind than it actually was.
Okay.
Because the next day he was like, it was nothing. But in my mind, I'm just like, because I never wanted to disappoint him even a little bit.
Yeah.
It was monumental for me.
So, in the house with 10 kids, That sounds like a lot of different types of energies, a lot of different types of interests.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find your voice in a sea of all of those different types of energies? I know you said that you started coming out of your shell around like high school period. When did you find your voice?
You know what? I think I found my voice at home much sooner. You know how kids who are not comfortable at school, then they get home and they're just like explode into their freedom?
Yeah, yeah.
That was me at home.
Okay.
Yeah, at home I was very, I was pretty sassy at home, probably because I was so much repressed energy.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
what I didn't express at school. At home, it was like, I was totally me. I was I was the family tattletale.
Oh, that's a nice way of saying snitch.
I was the family snitch. It was bad. Like it was, I was not safe when mom was gone because I was gonna get hemmed up because they was like, that one there, she's not like the rest of us. There was a coolness about my family that I really didn't have as a kid, and I knew it. Like there was just like a Gregory coolness that everybody was just, you know, all my sisters, you know, they had these big afros, they had their jeans, they all played basketball with the dudes. Like it was this thing of like cool, and part of cool was not being very emotional. Now today, I don't think that's very cool.
Right.
But at the time, that's what we associated cool with, you know?
Cool is cool.
Cool is
You
cool.
ain't too high, you ain't too low, you cool.
Right. I was anything but. I was like always in tears. I was always telling on somebody. I was always the uncool kid. You know, it's like, dang, she coming in, she fucking it all up. You know? But I knew that I was different in that way, and I was that way anyway, you know? So it was just kind of like, I knew that I was a bit different from the rest of them in that way. I sang pretty early, so that was another thing that identified something specific that I had.
That was
you know?
yours.
That was mine. You know, all right, come on, little Ayanna. You know, it was always like sing a song from the Wiz. You know, and so I had a voice there. And you know, I love to sing, I love to dance, and I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I was pretty sassy, I think, as a kid at home, and I also absolutely wanted to be just like my older sisters. I thought they were. And I was just telling my sisters the other day, I was like, when you think about all the celebrities that we would love to be with, oh, if you could spend a day with, I can't think of anybody I would want to be around more, honestly.
Than your older sisters?
Yeah. I mean, they are it to me.
What makes them it?
Man, like, so.
It's so crazy how your energy just changed.
Oh, man. They're so damn cool. Like, I don't like, okay, so there's 10 of us, right? 10 of us, you know, living. And when we get together, I think part of it is from a little girl listening to their stories. It was always, like I always superimposed myself like I'm there. You know, so hearing about everything that they did at school and in sports and traveling around the world, it was just like, man, I'm gonna be as cool as Lynn one day. I'm gonna be as cool as Zenobia one day. I'm gonna do that thing Paula did when she wasn't afraid, when, you know, when they had the Junior Olympics at their school, and she, you know, so I think part of it was like the myths and the legends of them. So that was from young. So it was just like, so the fact that now I'm a grown adult, and even though they're still my big sisters, it's like we're still now looking across. That to me is still quite amazing.
Right.
Because I'm still, in many ways, I feel still like a little girl in a lot of ways in the family construct. But it's just like, wow, I'm grown too. We can just have like real live conversations.
Yeah.
And they're just so chill, and they're so like, they're the opposite of my dad as far as like, they don't want a spotlight, they don't want the mic. They don't, you know, we're not the type that would fight over, you know, like we're gonna fight over some money, or they're just like,
They're too cool for that. They're cool.
for that. You can have that. You good. So it's just like, and then they're just like naturally spiritual without being preachy. I feel like my quality of life is elevated when I'm around them.
Wow.
My sister Satori is like a Dick Gregory Jr. She's like the holistic health being. Not because she's trying, just because that's just how she lives her life.
Right.
So I'll be like, sis, I need such and such and such and such. What do I need to do for this? My leg is aching. She's like, sis, do blah, blah, blah. Whatever she says to do is done, and I'm better. Or she'll just send me some YouTube link that just is like the very thing that I needed to see. We call my sister Zenobia. I mean, I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud in public, but we call her Jesus. And it's like, she's like, okay. But I just don't know of another human that I'm close to that is as unconditionally loving as her in a way that seems superhuman, in a way that's like, I would love to get to that place.
Wow.
And so it's phenomenal. Like she's a phenomenal being to me. Like to me, I watch her like I would watch a guru, like I wanna walk like that, the way I engage my ego, I know I have so much work to do. I know the ways in which I still really need to be right. And I watch her and I'm like, man, and she's human, of course. But I'm just like, whoa, like we came out of the same womb.
Yeah.
And I get to watch her like I would pay to watch somebody and hear them talk or just watch them live. My brother Johanse, all of my brothers and sisters. I mean, I could point out so many things for different reasons, but they walk good. And and I think the other thing is there's a Gregory thing about us where we're like, we are kind of different. Like we can't even act like we're not. There's a humility. As much as I have an ego and still get to deal with that. There is a family humility, I would say, where people say, well, what was it like growing up with Dick Gregory? Or it must have been, even like having money. Like it was like rich was like a bad word in our house. Like you didn't talk about it. You just didn't, because it was the understanding was like everything that we're doing in the larger scheme of things is the goal is to help leave our environment better than we found it. That's it. So it was like that's how we measured wealth even, because Dad had tens of millions and literally gave it all away. So it's like, that ain't shit. The money ain't shit. That ain't, it's like what you really got though, what you working with. You know what I'm saying? So that was the currency. That was the currency. The currency was, how good is your walk? How good is your walk on those days when you didn't have it? How good is your walk? And so, many times, my walk didn't look good. It was ugly, but at least that was what was the prize. That was the goal.
Yeah.
I remember even asking my mom one time, like, we had a woman who was very close to our family who cleaned. And in my mind, at school, it's like they call that a maid. So I was like, well, is she a maid? And don't say that. She's our friend. So it was like, in my mind, the things that the outside world would say, they're rich, they have a housekeeper, they have this, they have that, they have that. None of those things were relevant in our home. And so it did something, We weren't the same as the children of other civil rights activists or other, just celebrities, period.
Right.
However, we weren't the same and we knew that we weren't. We didn't grow up under the kind of microscope that they grew up under. I mean, we were under a microscope in some ways, but not like that.
Yeah.
Not like, you know what I mean? So it was like, Dad's famous. We're not.
Yeah.
That's Dad's world. And when we enter that world, we get everything. We've been we're staying at the 5-star hotels, or we down in the Mississippi, in the ditches, you know what I mean? We're sharecroppers who can't read or write. So it's like the worlds were so varied, and Daddy was the same. He had that same pimp walk up north as down south. So it was like, who gonna check me, boo? But the real currency was not just that he was bold and brilliant, but what he was willing to use it for.
Yeah.
And that he was willing to sacrifice everything for the good of humanity, So that part made us different as a family.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's you can't live in that life and not be different. So even like in school, when kids are followers. Most of the we're people are taught to be followers. So, you have that small group of leaders at the top who are leading in a good direction, and a small group who are leading in a negative, and most folks are just in the middle. They're gonna blow which way the wind blows. And so I knew better than that. So the times when I chose to go along, to get along, to act like, I'm a laugh at something, even though it's not funny, and knowing that somebody's getting hurt. The few times I did that, it hurt me different.
Yeah.
And even the teachers would be like, I expected different of you because I know you're not the same. And other kids would be like, what are they talking about, Ayanna? Like, I'm like, I know what they're talking about because I'm not you.
Right.
It can't be you.
Right. That's so amazing. I heard in one of your interviews you talk about like how your dad, like he's in all of you guys, like in a way, and there's this light that he had and this rhythm that is just inherent in like the family, that everybody, and you describing that. And I don't know how you teach that to people other than just living it.
Right.
And that's not a word-based class. Like you have to actually, that's an action that you've got to demonstrate to really communicate what that is.
True.
Because otherwise, the other actions of just acquiring the stuff will supersede the words, because then you'll just be so focused on the stuff, the tens of millions, the cars, the house, that just telling you that it ain't shit ain't enough. You gotta like really demonstrate that through your actions.
Right.
And it sounds like, through the process of your father doing that you all clearly saw what the real value of what the real value was. And it wasn't necessarily the money,
Right.
or any of that. And it never is, right?
No.
It's like knowing the price of everything and the value of nothing. Like, yeah, we know what $10 million can buy you, but what can giving $10 million away get you, as an example? That might not necessarily even be something people factor into their equation when doing that.
True.
When did you realize you could sing, and you wanted to sing?
So this is what had happened. I was 13 and I had entered a singing contest. Now I knew I could sing when I was in, I knew I could sing in elementary school. It was just fun, it'd be like thing, at the family reunion, come on, little Ayanna, sing that song from the Wiz. And so that was cool. When I was 13, I entered my first singing contest. And you had to win a round and then come back to see if you could win the whole thing.
Okay.
And I was, oh my God, I was so scared.
You remember what you sang?
I sure do. Well, I remember my final song. The first song I sang was it Patty Austin and James Ingram? What is it called?
How do you keep the blue playing?
Yeah, how do you
and
keep the song
fade
from playing?
away.
That song. Can't think of the name of it.
It's now or never.
Yes.
No more, I'm not afraid. We're going to get to the song.
Yes.
Forever, for always.
Yeah.
The words are...
The words, how do you keep the song from fading?
Shit.
How do you keep the song from fading? I don't know. But
I'm
that's
sorry.
that song.
Okay.
Everybody know that song because you sang it and you got a nice voice.
Thank you. Hey, let's, just let me know if you want to put me on a track. I'm just kidding.
I think we might need to work that out. So I sang that and I didn't win that round. And so I was really disappointed. But one of the guys who was running the contest said, come back another time. I think you could get it. And so I was just like, should I come back? So I went back another time and I can't remember what that song was, but I won that round. So I was excited.
Okay.
And I came back and I sang Shaka Khan's This Is My Night.
I don't know that
It
song.
was on the album of Shaka Khan, Let Me Rock It Shaka Khan, and Through the Fire. It was on that album. I just remember the first words, I'm putting on my makeup, now it's time to make up. The owners of the night are calling me. I can't remember the rest, but then it was like, this is my night. I'm gonna do it just right. I'm gonna let this magic shine. It was a perfect song, I mean, even lyrically for the night, for the moment, right? So this was a really big thing because it was like all the winners of the other rounds were there. There were like full bands there. There was like a rock band. There was
Wow.
It was like all my friends were there. It was at shout out to Puffer Bellies and Hyannis Wareham.
Shout out Puffer Bellies.
Shout out Puffer Bellies. I don't know if they're still around, but I heard they're still around. They were like a teeny bopper club, for like under 18. And so all I know is that I won that daggone contest. And I remember because I think the prize was $300. And all my friends were just like screaming and going crazy. And I was just so excited. And so at that point, I was like, I can sing. I can sing. And I remember, this is what I used to do. So I was in school, in 8th grade, I was in the choir,
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, not the choir, chorus. We had chorus.
Oh, of course. This is Massachusetts.
This is Massachusetts. We're talking about
Excuse
choir.
me.
I didn't know nothing about
My bad.
I didn't know nothing about no choir. We were in chorus. And so my teacher was like, if you could just picture that typical, she had, very long nose, and she was she never smiled, and she was always very, very conservatively dressed, and I was an alto, and she definitely liked my voice, but I would sing to blend in with my peers, so they never heard the soul in my voice. It was almost like that was
Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. I was scared. I hadn't hit high school yet. I hadn't hit my Ayanna Revolution.
Okay.
So let's say we're singing, I would do this thing where I would sing the song at school, and then I would come home, and again, all that repressed energy was like, now I'm gonna do it how I sing. And so in school, hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. So that's all she had heard of me. I get home and I'm like, they hear me in the bathroom because I just got to get it out. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth and mercy mild. So all of that's bubbling up in me, right? And so when I sang the song, Shaka Khan song, This Is My Night, we had recorded it in the studio too. So I brought the tape, we had tapes back then, the cassette tape to school, and it was going around the class, and the kids were listening to it. And so one of my friends gave it to the teacher, and I was horrified because it was like those two worlds were not supposed to collide.
Right.
So my friend gave it to the teacher and asked her if she could play it. So she played it, just frowning the whole time. And I was just like, so the song ends, and she was like, that was quite good. We should hear it again.
Oh.
She played it again. I was like, oh my God. So anyway.
She was hating on it there. She was boiling.
And I couldn't believe she liked it. So anyway, it wasn't until college. In college, I wasn't even taking music seriously. If I did, I went to Howard. I probably would have been in fine arts. I was a sociology major, African and African American studies minor. So music was still just like a hobby. Still had no intentions of like pursuing music professionally. And then I was like being called on as a student activist. Now I'm in DC, so now everybody knows I'm Dick Gregory's daughter. Now I'm in a world where it's like how it would have been if I had grown up like that. I'm in a black city.
Right.
And so then that was I got to Howard in 1990. That was the first Bush was in office, first war in the Persian Gulf. Well, not the first, but 1990. So it was like I was a part of an organization called Student Call Against the War. I was a part of all these different student organizations and movements and marches, and I became like one of the singing voices for the movements. You know, so my first experience singing in DC was through a bullhorn. Wow. You know, so it wasn't until like
At a rally.
at rallies. That was what, you know, I'm singing freedom songs, protest songs. That was like my introduction to singing as a young adult.
One of the things that changed my mind in this process was hearing you on one of your interviews talk about your activism. And as you were singing, it was the first time I had ever connected the dot between how important that was. And there was something else that you said in another interview when you were talking about kids and how kids put their headphones on and the adults are trying to get the kids to take off the headphones. And you were like, no, 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 no. I want to get in the headphones.
Yes. That was when it clicked.
And I didn't understand the power of the voice and of song in activism until preparing for this. And then to hear you, it's probably just as powerful as any other element. When it's used, but I think anything can be said in that way.
Yeah.
If you're clear on your role in it. I think sometimes the ego gets involved, fear, and all of these other things, fame, notoriety, and we lose sight of how we can actually tap into the full purpose by aligning with it in a way and then allowing, because it's not you, this thing isn't us. We're more like the vessel to just let it out, to let it shine out.
Right.
And when you connect with that in a way, I feel like that is the most powerful element. And I feel like when you're doing your work and your activism and your art, all of those things, it feel like it's interchangeable. It's all a part of the same thing. And if the objective is to leave the world a better place than you found it, everything you're doing is in pursuit of that in some way. And I never understood that until I started watching some of your interviews. Because I was like, that is definitely a power. And it blew my mind in terms of understanding that. So thank you for helping me see it in that way. Because I never equated singing to being a form of activism.
Gotcha.
I never equated it to being the same thing. And maybe the song coupled with the words, because I know that you write too, that combination, in hearing you talk about your dad and people marching with no weapons, and the people without the weapons actually having fear for them because they're chanting these songs. Like the idea of that is fucking overwhelming.
It is. It really is. It really is.
And you don't have a weapon.
And you don't have a weapon, and you got officers, a whole militia of folk, guns pointed at you, and they have fear in their eyes, and you have nothing in your hand, and you are moving with a force that is so powerful that they shook, and they don't know why. It's God.
When did you make that connection between song and like activism? Were you doing I think your life is probably a form of activism, just given, your lineage, but when did you connect the songs and all? When were you clear in that?
Honestly, I think it was from the beginning because, growing up marching, those songs, those spirituals, freedom songs, protest songs, Mom was teaching me those before I even marched. So part of the music that was just running through me was protest music, was freedom music. So, I was probably home with Mom, and, if she's reminiscing and talking about different times that she'd been arrested, and singing, ain't gonna let nobody turn us around, turn us around, turn us around. We gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down that freedom lane. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom. And then, all of these songs, and then songs that enter the home from, Sweet Honey and the Rock and other musical groups who dedicated their whole musical repertoire to healing and liberation. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. And so it's all of this conversation around freedom. And so the music speaks to freedom. And we're going to keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down that freedom lane. Everything is speaking to that. So even spirituals that were taken from slavery that are now being used in the 50s and the 60s and even today. But, at the time, these are songs that I was learning like secondhand from my mom, from Dad, from watching footage. And so I'm singing those songs. And those were some bonding moments that I would have with my mom. And so then having the chance to actually sing those songs, once I marched, I'm like, I know these songs. I'm a part of this. Like, this is a part of my bloodline. And so then fast forward to Howard University, and I'm singing through the bullhorn, a lot of these same songs, the songs we're still singing. We may change up some of the words to make it specific to the very specific issue. And so you take a song like Oh Freedom, and then fast forward, I'm working with young people. I'm out of college now. And as a matter of fact, how I met Ashay was at Martha's Table after school program. And that was really where I realized, like, we got to get the headphones. I need to get inside the headphone, because we're like trying to get the headphones off. They're listening to all kinds of low vibrational music. But we don't want to diss them for it. We want to understand it and say, hey, look, let's talk about it. Let's break the lyrics down. And I'm like, in addition to that, what are they interested in? What is it that I can talk about that will be relevant to them, where they can get it? Because if they may listen to Old Freedom and it's just so old that there's no connection. So then I began bridging the gap between songs that were taught to me as a child and then connecting to, I had such a love for children. I mean, really and truly, like really wanting them to have a sense of nourishment and nurturing and a sense of purpose of like how brilliant you are. And I want you to know how all this energy got misdirected.
Yeah.
You did not come up with the idea that you want to be a drug dealer. You did not come up with the idea that you want to shoot somebody. That has nothing to do with being black. Matter of fact, let me show you where we really come from. And let me show you how they're using you as a pawn. And that thing that you think you want to buy, it was already put in your head.
Yeah.
For you to be a consumer, and for you to be to everything you do, for it to be a liability in some way, and for them to make the larger society to make money off of you. So when I started writing music, I started writing my first album, Beautiful Flower, which is what my name means. It was at Martha's Table. It was with Ashay and Timothy Jones, who was the director. Ashay was the assistant director, and Jen Thomas was actually the director as well. So anyway, those were some of the staff that I was working with that were all just like-minded people. And then our teens, our kids, we just adored them. They adored us. They trusted us. And so I was trying out my music on them, knowing that I wanted to elevate the space through music. So one of the songs that I wrote, called Warriors Rise, ironically, that my father was featured on, the only song I ever did with my dad. So I haven't sang it in so long, but the words, the lyrics are relevant, and I'll make the connection between like what I was doing then and then going back. So it was like, this is a freedom song meant to go around the world. Critical time everywhere in the world. Wake up, 'cause we stand at war. Please ask yourself, what are you living for? So you say you're a no-limit soldier, but you're living off the lies that they told you about what and who you are. You ain't never been a thug, you was born a star. With all the ice and the platinum chains, I guess slavery has a new name. Willie Lynch gets to win again every time we hurt each other through material ends. Baby girl, your body not for show. The money he give can't feed your soul. Don't you know you hold the world in your hands? So change the game, respect yourself, and the world will follow. Warriors rise. I see the fire in your eyes. Take back your life, take back your life. And so I'm talking to them at that particular time. Everybody was talking about, I'm no limit. I'm a no limit soldier.
Right.
Master P.
Master
right?
P was, he was banging.
And so I'm like, if you really no limit, are you really willing to stand? I know you're willing to die, but are you willing to live?
Yeah.
You're willing to die if somebody stepped on your sneakers. That's not the conversation I want to have. Are you really gully with it? So then it was like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, the platinum chains and the ice, and then allowing them to hear the Willie Lynch letter. Whether it was a fictitious letter or not, it don't matter because it was based on the truth.
Yeah, it's
So
the truth.
allowing them to see, like, do you see how this was broke down? And, dang, we pawns? Like, hold up, ain't nobody trying to be a pawn. So wait, let me get this straight. You saying this is who our people were? You saying this is what we did? You saying the very subject that I'm failing, my people created it? You're saying when I look at the pyramids, oh, that's based on A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and now I can understand in motion, in living genius motion, how our ancestors created, how everything from the world civilization emanated from this continent. And now it's gonna be a more difficult conversation for me to have with myself that I can't.
Yeah.
And so for me, that then became how the music emerged. It emerged from a real need that I was seeing with our young people and serious stuff they were dealing with and struggling with around self-hatred and around, just being able to co-create peace in the space. And well, peace has to begin with self-love. Well, where does that start? Well, they taught us to hate ourselves. Well, how can we shift that? So then it was really like the liberation theology and mentality and household that I came out of was just a natural, my music was just going to be a natural continuum of what I heard as a child. Yeah.
Message.
Sorry
about that. I don't want to get up as being
Okay.
a slight veer, but relevant.
Sure.
Have you ever experienced ayahuasca?
No, I've been talking about it lately.
Okay.
Should I do it?
Should do it.
Really?
Should definitely do it. You should definitely do it.
Wow.
You should definitely do it. Do you know if your dad did?
I don't know if he did it.
You should definitely do it.
Why?
Your it's like a layer of reality that becomes available to you that you didn't know existed. And it's hard to communicate the actual experience because it's not based in the framework of like language, but more of feelings. But an analogy that I can use, that I have used often in the past is, we can walk around, everything that we're doing is in is in contrast to something else we've either seen or heard about. And so if that contrast was a glass, as an example, we're just filling our perception of what that is with our experiences of it. So, and this is the fullness of the glass. And like, let's say this fullness is the happiest of happy we've ever been or ever heard that you could possibly be. And so everything is based in contrast to that.
Okay.
And then you go and you take ayahuasca in this responsible way, and you realize that your perception of the fullness of glass wasn't even a drop. It wasn't even a drop.
Wow.
It's the most beautiful, eye-opening. It's helped with my like depression stuff. It's helped with just the idea and this concept of choice. You'll laugh at your ego and just how ridiculous the concept of it is. And that doesn't mean you're gonna necessarily put it down. It shifts your relationships to everything profoundly. Your dad, I'm not gonna say he came to me, but something he said, I thought about in my first ayahuasca experience. We were outside in Brazil, and we were outside in the grass, and your father talked a lot about, that I've seen online. I'm saying it like I knew him. Walking outside with your feet on the grass first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And like how there is something there with that.
Yeah.
I felt that. And I remember when we were there with the sun rising and I had my feet on the grass and I'm laying in the grass and I'm doing all of these things. I'm like, this is what Dick Gregory was talking about.
Wow.
This is what...
You were literally thinking that?
You gotta be outside with your feet in the grass. I'm like, this is beautiful. And then I'm running, I'm laughing, I'm crying. It was, please, if ever given the opportunity, please, and a responsible opportunity to do it, please do it. Because it changed my life. I've done it several times since then, but yeah. And what made me want to ask is, I feel you're very connected.
Yeah.
And for somebody who feels connected, there's another layer of that.
Yeah.
That once you experience it, you at least know it's there.
Wow.
Because you won't know it's there without it.
Okay.
I have moments here, Stevie Wonder song, Gonna Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, Power Flower. I sit here and listen to that song sometimes, and I literally have the equivalent of an ayahuasca experience listening to that song.
Ooh.
I will be in here. It's a connection of physical, mind, body, everything, to like something that is so much greater than yourself. You dissolve in a way and you just become one. Without ayahuasca, I wouldn't even know how to look for that. Because the crazy thing about it, and I'm gonna shut up after talking about it, these opportunities exist in every moment of our lives. We're just busy doing a bunch of things. We're distracted. Shut up and listen. They're speaking. It's literally right there. And so in ayahuasca, if you take it enough or once or whatever, you can start to understand what has to happen within you to orient yourself, to connect to it.
Yeah.
so that you don't have to always go. So like sometimes I could be here and be doing something, and then I'll move, and then I'll see something in a certain way, because it's almost like a key, like a lock.
Wow.
And it has to do with sound. Sound is a very, very, very big part of the experience, because there is a resonance there that aligns the things that need to be aligned to open this up. So any ayahuasca experience you have, at least from the ones that I've been to, music is always a part of it. The chanting, the singing, these vibrations create, it aligns things in a way, because like most of our life, we're doing this during the day. So the opportunity exists, but it's all like this. And so in ayahuasca, one day I'll recognize this and that'll stop. And I'll be like, oh, that looks like that's on the path. That looks like that's on the path. And so I'll sit and I'll be like, oh, boop, doo, 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 doo. And then another layer will start to unlock, and then another layer will start to unlock. And then you feel it, and then you connect to it. But I wouldn't have known what to look for in just like normal day-to-day life if I haven't done it enough to at least know what that starts to look like, the initial part of the unlocking of it.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's love.
It's been coming up a lot.
Has it?
A lot, yeah. And I actually talked to a group of sisters who did it and shared their experiences. And it sounded like wherever they went, it was I think they went somewhere in, is it Central America or South America? I can't remember. It wasn't Brazil, but wherever they went, it was clearly legit, and it was clearly like on point and life-changing. And my god sister was like, if you do it, I want to go with you. And she recently said, like, are you thinking about? I was like, yeah, I am.
Please do. I implore you.
Wow.
It would be and then I'm going to have you back so we can talk about it. That'd be a great, and we can just spend the whole time, because it'll shift our conversation.
Right.
It'll shift our conversation about the ayahuasca experience.
Okay.
Not just in general, but it'll be, because it's hard to talk about it if you haven't done it.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let me know.
Okay.
You're talking a lot about kids. Dating. What's dating been like?
I was recently talking about the fact that I've never been in a consistent relationship for more than 2 years. And I used to think that, okay, I'm just waiting for the one, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So if I'm clear, better to be clear and keep it moving. And I've always been real cool with everybody I've ever dated. I've never like burned bridges, or I'm always just cool with everybody. But it don't last long, or at least that aspect of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had an on and off again relationship, maybe like 15, 16 years. I mean, that's been over for years, but I'm saying that was the only like relationship that felt long term, but I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't consistent. So I don't really include that in like day in, day out. I'm with you, you with me, we doing this together.
Gotcha.
2 years, max. And I always imagined that I would be married. I was in love with love. When I was 12, I was dreaming about marriage. Like, I just can't wait, to be married. I wanted, about 3 kids maybe. And one day I woke up and I was like, what if you don't get married? And what if you don't have kids in this life? What if? And it was like, it was almost like I grieved the idea And then at some point, because there was some grieving around it, particularly the children piece, because I so wanted that.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I remember Ashay really helped me with that. She said, she knew, like herself, I mean, in addition to having her own biological children, she's helped to mother so many children, so she knows me in my journey with children and how many young people that I've been around and interacted with and supported on their journey. And she said, you get to expand your concept of mothering because you are a mother. And that really, really, really helped me.
Sounds like something she would say.
Doesn't it sound like something Shay would say?
Oh, yeah.
And it landed. It really landed. And another sister who helped me with it, E053, the co-founder of Wilson Baker Academy, where Shay, has worked for several years and still does a lot with them. Bashia said to me while she was pregnant with her, I can't remember if that was her maybe the third child. So she had all of this, maternal, feminine energy just oozing, baby about to drop.
Right.
And I was sharing with her the pain, the emotional pain, the grief of because I had started menopause early, because it's like, you hit 30 and you're like, okay, 35, and you're like, okay, who, let's have this baby.
That's funny.
And I was like, no, come on. I know I can't. You know what I mean? I know me. I'm like, if it's out of desperation, no, that don't resonate. That's not how you live. So if it's supposed to be, just let it be. So then 40 hit, and early menopause popped off, and I was like, no, I'm not done. And then, so I remember Bashia saying to me, sis, this lifetime you get to rest in that way. She said, you have been a mother, you are a mother, and you've been a mother in probably all of your other lifetimes, or many of your other lifetimes. This particular incarnation, this is an opportunity for you to rest in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you were personally responsible for a little person right now. And it's an opportunity for you to move around the world in the way that we need you to. And that landed. Not in a consolation prize. It really landed because I felt like it must be that in past lifetimes I had a lot of kids because I'm always looking for the kids in this life. And so it felt like out of place, well, where's mine?
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, you get to do it differently. It gets to show up differently than your nurturing sensibilities get to show up differently in this life. And so there was that as it related to the children. I have no shortage of nieces and nephews all around.
How many total?
That abound. I don't even know now.
Are we talking about 30s and 40s?
No, not as many as you would think for it, because honestly, most of the kids are only coming from, most of the babies are coming from a few of us.
Okay, I got you.
Over half of us don't have kids, but my brother Johanse has 5, and Zenobia has 6, and so probably about 20.
Okay.
And then some great nieces and nephews. And as far as dating, wow, after Dad passed in 2017, after he transitioned, I went from yearning for my husband to being I'm okay. And I felt like nothing's missing. But it also wasn't I don't want to be with anybody. It was just for the first time I felt complete. And I felt like if anything happens, I don't have to look for it. It'll manifest.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was just I was looking. And I think that energy was so intense that it was you ain't gonna find it like that. And so I've reached a space after Dad passed where things shifted inside of me. I was so much focused on the continuum of showing up as the continuum of his legacy, through my art. And I had so much I didn't have a lot of time to be like yearning for anything because I was so full. I was so full of the life that he gave us. I was so full of the gems, the wisdom, and just the emotion of like, now he's on the spiritual plane and, interacting with him there. And so, and the other thing is, to be quite honest, going through early menopause, just menopause period, the hormones change. So my libido was so much lower, and I was just getting to know my new body. And, you know what I mean? And so that was happening at the same time. And so relationship the idea of dating went from here to like, I won't block the blessing. If it happens, it happens. And so that's kind of how I've been living my life. I just started dating someone this year. And so that's been different because I hadn't dated in at least 5 years.
What do you think the 2-year mark thing was about?
No idea. I have no clue.
Are you difficult to be in a relationship with? Have you
I
been
think
told
so.
that? Or do you think you are?
I think I am, definitely. And I know I'm the common denominator. Like I was always the one to walk away.
Oh, you were the one leaving?
Always. They were always like.
So were they good dudes, Bob? And I hate to use, I can't think of another word, so forgive me if I'm.
They were good dudes. Yeah, that's a good word. They were good dudes. And this is what I, in part, I always feel like, I blame a lot of things on my dad in a fun way.
He ain't here no more. You
like,
can't be blaming that man.
So I always say, several things I blame him for, in all the best ways.
Yeah.
He ruined me for a job. I could never work because of Dad. Thank you, Dad. I can't work. It just wouldn't work. And when it comes to, he was such a force that, it is such a force that for me,
it's hard.
You gotta be, like, being a good dude is a requirement. There's a lot of other shit I need in addition to that.
Go ahead, throw it at me, what you need.
So, a lot of the brothers who approached me, who I may have entertained, like, okay, let's see what's here, who were like solid brothers, stable, and just good humans.
Emotionally available.
Well, I'm not gonna say all of them were.
Okay, I got you. I know that's a big one.
That's a really big one.
Yeah.
But good brothers.
Got you.
And definitely doing their best. I would say that one of my best male friends says, you're the hardest match ever. Like I never said this to him. He would say like, good luck finding a mate, because the combination that you are, there may be like one brother on the planet for you.
That's crazy.
He would say that all the time. He's like, Ayanna, like, good luck, because okay, here's the thing. So there's like revolutionary brothers, and they're not all made the same, but a lot of the ones that I interacted with were not the 360 degrees of what I would have needed. There was like, and I needed that, and I do need that. I need a brave soul, and someone who's got their mind on our people, for sure. That's not just like we making money and I don't care how we make this money, or it matters to me what you do.
Yeah.
And it matters that our visions align, and they must align in a way of liberation for our people and for humanity and for the planet and the universe. So that's important. So for those brothers who I encountered who were like, revolutionary brothers, not all of them. I'm not thinking, but for some of them, it was like they were so serious that the whole other parts of me, that's just the complete foolish Ayanna who just wants to be light and fun and funny and all these other things. There was really not a place for that, So there were
Because they for our people.
Yeah.
And there's a deficit that we got to make up for. So the laughing and joking and playing.
So there were some brothers where I felt myself kind of repressing my own freedom in that space for some, you know. And then there were some brothers who were just good dudes, very American, you know, and I'm so like un-American. And so it was just kind of like, I can't blame you for, there's nothing wrong with you. There's no deficit.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
You know what I mean? Like, but I'm saying even like, not everybody grew up with
Dick Gregory.
You know, so it's kind of like, I can't put that on you, but that's
what
I need.
Is that a fair metric?
No.
Is it realistic?
Probably not.
So after the 2-year mark, obviously you knew that about the brothers relatively early, I guess. So the 2-year mark will go through and then the dudes will be, and then you'd be like, yeah, this isn't it for whatever reason. And then you'd be like, hey, let's just. So what has shifted in that thought process now that you feel could help the situation that you're in presently?
Nothing.
Okay.
To be quite honest.
Okay.
I don't think anything has shifted. I think the only thing that shifted is that, I think the only thing that has shifted, which now that I'm thinking about it could be quite helpful, is because there's not a lot of pressure for, this is a big one. I shouldn't have said nothing. This has shifted to a degree. There's not as much pressure I have for a person to be all of these things that I love, because I'm also recognizing now that he does not have to be everything to you. There are things like, let's say he's not funny. I really want to do this funny. But what if he's not? But what if he's the bomb and there's other people I can get funny from. You know what I mean? Whereas before it was like, yo, I really want you to be funny though.
Yeah.
So I think that has shifted, where he doesn't have to be everything to me, even though there are things that I may want and need, and I can say, I get that from my good girlfriend. I get that from my older sister. I get that from mommy. I get that. You know what I mean? That has helped.
Because I think what's cool about that acquiescence, if that's the proper use of the word, is that it gives them an opportunity to extend the same to us as well. Because like for me, the idea had always been, even though I got a poem, I did this spoken word thing that I not too long ago, and I was like, I know I'm the shit, I just don't feel like it sometimes. I just don't. And I gotta be okay with the fact that I don't.
Right.
I love the fact that, I feel like I can walk into a room and get whatever I want to get out of this room for whatever purpose I want to get out of it. And then I also like the fact that I know that I walk in there and sometimes, not feel like I'm measuring up. That's just the other side of that energy. And if I get close enough to a person long enough, they're going to see both of those. And I don't want that side that I'm judging to be a side that they also judge and use as a reason for not wanting to be with me, because there's the other side of it too. So if I give them an opportunity to not be everything that I need, then I feel like I'm naturally giving myself an opportunity. I'm giving myself an opportunity to not be everything that they need.
Definitely.
And then we'll figure out how we satisfy our own needs or get them satisfied in other ways together, but we're at least going to be on the same page.
Definitely.
As it relates to that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I so agree with that. And I think another thing has shifted is that I don't feel the need to get married anymore. Whereas before it was like a must. I must find my husband, and whereas now I'm like, I'm flowing. You know, that's another big thing that has shifted. I think anyone that I was dating with any level of seriousness, you know how, I mean, I don't want to say all women, but we didn't already planned out the marriage. We didn't already mapped out, okay, this is how we're going, you know, we're dreaming it all, you know, especially when there's like a powerful connection. We're just yes, you know. So the fact that now I don't feel the need to go into that. I don't dream about that early anymore. I'm just like, I enjoy you today. We hanging. This is fun.
How important do you think your father having 10 kids by the same woman and being married to that same woman for as long as, and staying married for as long as they did, how important do you think that is to the image and into all the other elements that are encapsulated into that legacy?
One of the reasons that I believe it is, among other things, one of the many reasons that I think it's significant, because there's absolutely an assault on, you know, Black love. There's absolutely, in my opinion, it's very difficult to turn on the television and see images of sustaining Black loving relationships, you know. And so for young people...
Pause that. I'm going to add that as a man and a woman.
Okay.
I'm going to add that, but please continue, because I think we can see them, but I think the dynamics of the people involved are kind of different. I think it's more difficult to see a Black man and a Black woman.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think that there is what I have witnessed is a intentional schism between loving relationships between Black men and women. And there's so much imagery of antagonistic relationships between Black men and Black women, on screen, on social media. It is, it's a pandemic. It's huge.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you look at shows like, you know, Love and Hip Hop or Basketball Wives or whatever, you know, and I think like, wow, the young sister who is watching these shows and as she is negotiating her own sense of womanhood or adulthood and seeing this level of violence, this level of insecurity, this level of, you know, there's always got to be a beef. Everything's going to come to an end. It's all going to come crashing to an end, or, you know, that's over, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. You know, they're expendable. Women are expendable. Men are expendable.
Right.
The ghosting, you know, that's just become normalized. You know, I'm over that. No accountability. All of that. You know, it's become normal, and you know, nobody even really has to learn how to talk to each other anymore. You know, you talked about hating texting. That's wonderful. It's like nobody has to really talk unless they want to. Nobody has to have a proper date unless they want to. And so I think the beautiful thing about the image of mom and dad surviving, you know, first of all, surviving, you know, like Dad would say, living in the most insane, racist, sexist nation on the planet. And to still, you know, he'd say that the fact that I survived that and still have my wits about me, but in the context of mom and dad's marriage, to say that survived all of that.
Yeah.
And that when he left this plane, they were still aligned. I know how much it meant to both of them. I know how much it means to Mom now, you know, when she talks about him and their life together. And one thing that I think is very important to note is that, because see, for me, I've only had 2 years, right? So I don't know what I'm about to say. This is not something I've lived. I've just watched them.
Mm-hmm.
That there will always be times where from the outside looking in, you'd say, this don't seem worth it. Like there were times where I would be thinking like, well, what does my mom get out of this? She's holding him down. She's taking care of us. She never has a moment to herself. Like, when does she have any fun? When does she, you know, but that's from my perspective looking
Right.
in, like, I couldn't deal with that. I would need a man who would be doing, but I am, and I'm also looking at ways in which I feel like he's always running the show. He's running the show. Well, when does Mom get to choose? Not realizing until I got older, the ways in which women, and I'm specifically now talking about Black women because these are the women that I've watched, have been able to control so many things without raising their voice, without saying a word. You know, they could do it in the kitchen, cooking. You know, they could do it with what they didn't say. They could do it with a look. They could do it with asking a simple question. That the effect of that question that they ask has the brother thinking, damn, you know, the power of women.
Yeah.
And so the quiet in my mom, and I'm not saying all women are quiet, but my mom was, you know, my father was like, my mom was quiet, you know, in that way. Not like she was quiet with us, but I'm just saying that the two of them, the dynamic was they were very much opposites. So I was more so looking at him in the power position and her in the subordinate position, but really that wasn't the case. I did not have the wisdom to see that then.
Yeah.
To see the kind of power, you know. So at the end, when you hear Dad say, no, she wasn't just Dick Gregory's wife, she was Dick Gregory. You know, I wouldn't be here without this woman.
Yeah.
The ways in which she was able to navigate things, perhaps without us or him even knowing. So there were times when I looked in and said, man, I don't see how this is always worth it for Mom. That's just from my selfish perspective and my, you know, unwise perspective. Whereas when you watch them go through all the years and you live through those years with them, or at least some of them, you know, it's like I wasn't around, you know, when they got married, but for that which I witnessed, you know, 60 plus years of marriage. And then you see what they built. They could have walked away at any time. They could have. You think about all the things that come up in relationships. Any number of things could really be reasons to walk away on any given day. So I can't imagine how many of those things could have come up for them.
Or did that you guys just didn't know
I
about.
wouldn't even know because they was old school. We didn't hear. I never heard them argue. That was another powerful thing. I never heard my parents argue. So that is like unheard of today. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if they're arguing, kids are gonna hear it. We did not hear it. If they, and maybe they didn't. But what I'm saying is that to live through something, to be in it, to win it, long enough to say, damn, that shit was worth it. That is like, wow. You know, it's like, wow. And to talk to Mom now, she could tell you, you know, for days. She'd be talking for days if you were asking why was it worth it. You know, so there's something to be said about the fact that you stuck it out and you see the value now of how beautiful that journey really was. You know, it's not for everybody to stick it out. There's some relationships that you're supposed to split, you know, this ain't healthy. But for those relationships where the only thing that's really stopping the longevity is maybe selfishness or is lack of willingness to, just sacrifice, to compromise without losing yourself. There's something to be said about that. So their example, you don't see a lot of that today. People get married, these days, like, we could get divorced in 6 months. You know what I mean? It's a different day.
Could you be with a guy for a long period of time, playing house without getting married? I'm gonna use the old school term, playing house.
Yeah, I could. I mean, if I could survive my 2 years, look, bro, if I could survive 2 years,
I wonder what that 2 years is about, though.
I think I would be all right.
What do you think the 2 years is about? Why 2 years? Why not 3? Why not 6 months? Why 2 years?
Well, I shouldn't even say, because some has been less. For some, it has been 6 months.
But 2's been max.
2 max. Yeah, give or take. Could have been 2.5. It could have been, but somewhere in that area. I'm not sure. I think.
Is that the maximum amount of time? I'm gonna say this. Is that the maximum amount of time where you just want to give up? Where you can play the role, you can't play the role for longer than 2 years. That's your cutoff.
Probably, because it's never intentional. And when I look back, I'm like, yo, it was never consciously intentional. But I'm like, this is kind of consistent. What's consistent is you've been the common denominator. The reasons to leave. I mean, the fact that you were the one that typically always decided to leave, and the longest is usually somewhere around this time. Yeah, I think it's kind of like, I don't want to waste your time anymore. I don't want to waste my time anymore. We still cool. We're still gonna be cool if you want to be. If you can't be, I understand that.
That's some cold shit. You sound like one of them bros. You sound like me back in the day. Look, I get it. I'm sorry. Listen, if you want to be cool, we could be cool, but.
No, let me tell you how
That's cool.
My brother Johan said I'm saying it's a running joke, but he's not playing. Which what I'm about to say is really self-incriminating, because you think typically like, okay, your brother's gonna want you to be with a good guy, So your brother's gonna be really like, and he's really critical. He was critical of everybody, like, But the dudes who were like really, really, I would say in recent years, not back in the day, but in recent years, if he knows that like I'm considering dating somebody or that somebody likes me or that I like them, he'd be like, he'll say like, is he a really good brother? Man, leave that dude alone. Like, don't do that. Don't even.
Man eater.
Don't even. And I'm like, why would you say this? And so, a funny story, I was in Miami, and this brother, who I had nothing in common with, but I was just so, sometimes women are just so impressed with a man's boldness. This dude was just so bold, like, I'm gonna marry you. And he was just very take charge. And I was like, I kind of fuck with this. I don't even know who you are, but I'm okay, I see you. And so he was like, literally in a week's time, he was like planning out our life. And it was just kind of fun for me, And so, I didn't really think he was my husband, but it was just like fun. I hadn't been in a relationship in a minute. So I was like, okay, this is nice male energy.
See where it goes.
So he's planning, he's like, look, I want you to come this was in January. And he said, I want you to come in March and just spend all of March with me. I was like, I might just do that. So I go home, I tell my brother and his wife about the dude. And they're like, who the fuck is this dude? No, we don't know him. Like, ho, back up, sister. What are you talking about? You sounding crazy. We don't know him. What do you mean you're going for a month in March to Miami? No, hold up. So now Johanse's not saying anything. He's just smiling. But everybody else is like up in a roar, like, what? Yeah, we don't know this person. Who is this? We got to, Have we vetted him? You leave? No.
Right.
And so my sister-in-law, Tiffany's like, babe, she's talking to Johanse, babe, do you hear this? You're not saying anything. Why are you not saying anything? Ayanna's saying that she's going to potentially be in Miami for the whole month of March with a man that none of us know. Now it's January, right? we're talking about March. He scratches his head and he says, don't worry, babe. He said, don't worry, February will take care of March.
Oh, man.
And I was like, you're a jerk. He's like, I know my sister. And I was like, come on, brother. And so as it turned out, January actually took care of March. We didn't get to February. But I mean, again, nothing was clearly going to happen in that scenario. But Yohanse is just he so knows me, and he's just like, sis. Like,
What does he say it is?
I don't know. He hasn't really said what it is. I don't think I now you make me want to ask him. Now I'm definitely going to ask him, what is it?
Because it sounds like he has a line of sight that is pretty acutely aware of what's going on. I'd be interested to hear what his thoughts would be about it.
Look, can I ask him and then come back another day and give you the answer?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I like the answer.
We got to talk about Stevie Wonder, because it'd be impossible. Let's go all the way back. You said Stevie Wonder was like the soundtrack for you at a particular point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I know you met him, like all the way through your life when you were young and all that. What Stevie Wonder album did you fall in love with first? Do you remember?
No. I don't know what came first, because I'm sure I was listening to his music and loving his music before I was like recognizing the full depth and breadth of a particular album. You know, Stevie Wonder's music was being played, so it may have been multiple songs from different albums that were just like, oh my God, loving this music. But when I was in 9th grade and I began to go into my parents' albums, I was discovering, because they were new for me, this is in the 80s, I was discovering albums of Stevie Wonder's from the 70s that I had never heard. So, Songs in the Key of Life. Yes, I'm sure I had heard As, I'm sure I had heard Sir Duke, I'm sure I had heard, Another Star. But there were other songs on there that I didn't know until I began to inhale the experience of him and those whole albums. And then, so it wasn't until probably 9th grade that I began to like take him on album by album. So Songs of the Key of Life, of course, I just got lost in it all. Talking Book, Music of My Mind, Inner Visions. When I found The Secret Life of Plants, yeah, it was probably like early ayahuasca.
It was like that for you too?
I was gone.
I didn't understand it. There was a lot of it I didn't understand. I didn't understand his decision to do it. Like, I'm saying all of this as if I know him, right? But I didn't. There were so many things about that music, about that just made absolutely no sense, which was a part of the reason why it made sense.
It's amazing.
And I just fell in love with it. Like, to that and Where I'm Coming From are my two favorite pieces of his work. I've thought several times about what I would ask him. That wouldn't even be truly accurate. I was messing with this woman, and long time ago, and my birthday's in September, and September 8th, and she wanted to take me out for my birthday, but wanted to do it later. Like, well, if you can't take me out for my birthday, then, on my birthday, then I don't want to go out. She went by herself, and they sat her right next to a table where Stevie Wonder was at.
No.
That's the closest I have ever been to potentially being in the same space as this man. And I was kicking myself for the arrogance, the immaturity, all of that, just playing games. And I could have just been right there.
Oh my God.
Because I've thought so many times about what I would ask him. Like what I would, and one of my questions literally like, why this at this time?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And but I feel like he must have been on some ayahuasca shit at the time or whatever. It's an amazing beauty of work. You did a rendition of Black Orchid, I think, right? What?
No, I redid, on my first album, I redid Feeding Off the Love of the Land and They Won't Go.
You did They Won't Go? I gotta go. You didn't do a Secret Life of Plants rendition? I thought you did Black Orchid.
I did a production called Black Orchid. I did a production called
I gotta go back and listen to They Won't Go.
Yeah, that's off Beautiful Flower album. I thought he wrote that song for me as a child. I would sing when I found that album. I was out of here. I was gone, and that same forest that my dad would when we were training running, we would go to the state forest. It was a 2 miles there, 2 miles back. Well, I would enter the forest on my own. Start that over.
Satan.
Oh my God. So when I talked to you about running in nature and my father, doing these mandatory runs with Dad, going to the forest, the state forest, it's called Miles Standish. It was 2 miles there and 2 miles back to the house. Well, I began to run on my own. And when Stevie Wonder's music began to be this like musical backdrop for my whole world, Secret Life of Plants, that album became the way that I musically communicated with the trees and the plants in my world. I would go to the forest and I would sing every song to the trees and the plants, and I would just be in tears because I knew they felt me. I knew they heard me. And I knew they recognized me. Like I really felt like I am Black Orchid.
Yeah.
I am a Black Orchid, and that I don't know if I'll ever be a star in the world. I don't know if I'll ever be a musical superstar, but I know that nature recognizes me as a cosmic star. They recognize me as one of their own. Like I had that level of bonding. And I wouldn't talk to most people about it because, I don't like getting into debates about, I remember being in 11th grade and talking to this boy about, plants feel and they hear and they move, and he's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, this is why I don't talk to my peers about these things.
Yeah.
So that album was like, I just remember myself just out. I can remember myself laying down in the forest and just looking up the trees and just, like the sun peering through, and I'm just singing. I'm feeling the presence underneath me, the soil, the fertile ground, the plants, the trees, the flowers, the vegetation, and I'm just singing them songs. And I'm like feeling this living, breathing vibration, frequency running through me that's so undeniable. I'm like, this is what Daddy was talking about. This is what, it's like, I feel it. It's happening now. I can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
I'm feeling tingling in my chest. I feel like something, like the Incredible Hulk. Like, I feel so powerful. What is this? This is God inside of me. We don't have to go anywhere to get here. Like, this is here. It's available. Ooh, that right there, Stevie Wonder, like, yo.
When did you realize it was a documentary?
I think when I was like running around the house like, yo, I just discovered this album. They're like, first of all, it's not new. Came out in the 70s. You know.
Oh,
like,
you learned that long ago that it was a documentary?
yeah, I run around that time.
Oh,
somebody told me, even though I think I may have watched a little bit of it, but I never like watched the whole thing. It was,
I didn't know until like in the 2000s
Oh, okay.
that it was and went and found it. I was like,
Wow.
I watched it. I didn't, and then I started getting more info about, because the song Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants or something. He's got a thing on there where he's talking about bows.
Yes.
And that's how I didn't know that's how they actually started the company, by developing these sensors that measure plants' responses to human interaction.
Yes.
And then it went on to become some speaker electronic stuff and all of that. But I'm like, the brother dropping gems in his music, in addition to all of the other stuff that he was doing. But
Oh my God.
he's
Same old story. That was that one, right? I think that was
Huh?
that one. When you was talking about bowls, I think that was Same Old Story. The name of that
the
song.
Bows Would Devise. Is that
Same Old Story.
that same old story?
Yeah, I remember. That one was very emotional. I don't know why that was very emotional for me, that song, that particular one.
I'm gonna listen to it when you well later on. Do you have a favorite Stevie Wonder album?
I mean, growing up, I probably would have said Songs in the Key of Life, but I don't know.
I wasn't a big Songs in the Key of Life fan when I first heard
It
it.
was like everybody was, right?
I don't know. A buddy of mine tried to get me. Let me rephrase that. I wasn't a big Stevie Wonder fan growing up.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with this dude, but I liked music. I was a more Marvin fan. Like as much of a Stevie lover as I am, I'm an equally Marvin lover as well.
Okay.
So I was heavy into Marvin. And then he was like, man, you got to get into Stevie Wonder. I was like, yeah, I ain't really got into him. I was like, give me a joint to go listen to for the first time. And I'll see he said, you got to start with Songs in the Key of Life. I heard Songs in the Key of Life and I was like, I'm not feeling it. I don't know why. I just wasn't feeling it. I went back to Intervisions, Talking Book, Fulfilling This First Finale. All of that landed immediately.
Wow.
I had to go back to Songs in the Key of Life to really truly appreciate what it was. But it was my first introduction to him and I wasn't feeling it immediately.
Wow, okay.
But now it's like the brother, can't do no wrong. But
much.
it just didn't. I like some of his earlier stuff too. Please don't go. No, that's on Walking in the Sun.
What's his name?
When it's all on the tree, keep it running to be free.
Ooh.
Moving on. There's a place in the sun.
A Place in the Sun.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, right. Yeah, I like that one.
But yeah, I get. So you're going to India. Your father asks you if you're going to see the Taj Mahal. And you ask him a question about something, and he makes a statement to you that really stood out to me. What was that statement?
If you don't take it with you, you won't find it there.
When I heard you say that, it landed like I've never had something land before.
Wow.
And I want to know what that meant to you when you heard it at that time.
At that time, what that meant to me was oftentimes we think that what we experience in the outer world is random. That if we, so for instance, I'll be somewhat literal. going to India to see one of the wonders of the world. Just getting on a plane and going, halfway across the world, having the opportunity, the energy of the opportunity and the abundance to travel to these faraway spaces and places that oftentimes when we are in the presence of these majestic, incredible experiences, they feel overwhelming. They feel like little old me and big old this, or I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity to. And what I got from it is that if you did not already exist on a vibration and a frequency that called this in, you would never have called it in. So it's a reflection. The outer world, whatever it looks like, is some reflection of whatever you've co-created internally. If that's beautiful, if it's irritating, if it's painful, if it's great, there's a co-creation there, because your eyes will only be able to see what you have eyes to see. And two people could be looking at the same thing. I didn't even think about this example. So my father was always fasting. Spiritually, things shift when you fast. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where they were. I was not a part of this, but I heard the story. And I have siblings who said this really happened. There was a dad and a whole group of people were fasting, maybe like fasting on water, or maybe even air, but just say it was water for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever. So they're in this retreat space, somewhere in nature. And there was a particular day where all the people who were fasting, there were a couple people who were present for some moment. They weren't fasting, they had been eating. Nighttime had come. They looked up in the sky, and they said there was a light that took up like half the sky. Only the people who were fasting could see it. It was literally like drawn just like that. If those who hadn't fasted were like, "What do y'all see? I can't see it." Every single person who was fasting saw the exact same thing. And so they're looking at the same sky. If you don't take it with you, you won't find it there. What I took with me was stop separating yourself from the beauty of nature and the majesty of what the Most High has created, because you are one of those creations, that you are made of the same things. And so when you look and say, wow, isn't that beautiful? Look at that flower. And then you look in the mirror and can't see beauty.
Yeah.
That's a problem. What do you think the Creator sees when the Creator looks at you? So for me, it's that if you don't take it with you, you won't find it there. And understanding that if I'm in the presence of amazing shit,
you're amazing.
I'm amazing. And if I'm in the presence of something that doesn't feel, I have an opportunity to shift. There's some power that I have to do something about that.
And ayahuasca really helps remind you of that. It reminds you, because the cup gets so full, like you literally get to take it with you more often. Because a part of it, when I heard him say it, when I heard you say it, him saying that to you, it was similar to that, but mainly it was get your shit together. Like that's a big thing for me personally. And a part of getting my shit together is being still in my head and in my heart, and in such a way that allows me to experience what's there, like to be, like this idea that we've got to go search is the trick bag. It's the idea that it's outside of us is the illusion of separation that immediately causes pain, immediately causes despair. That otherism thing that we do a lot. And the moment I can sit still and recognize that whatever I'm seeing in this other thing is something that's inside of me, and that I literally get to choose, I get to make the decision to focus on what I see, because the ayahuasca will tell you that it's all beautiful. It's all perfect. It's all perfect. It just depends on like your vantage point. So if you go somewhere expecting to see something other than who you are, that's not even possible.
That's not even possible.
It's not even possible. And it blew, and it was, and I felt like that was just one of them things he just threw out. And as you were describing it in the story, so much of what I have consumed more of your father than probably the average human being.
Wow.
The average Dick Gregory fan, I would say.
Wow.
And I have an idea of who, and I've had several opportunities to meet him, through Shay and you and all that. But it was just like, I was always super nervous. And I think I was scared to be seen. I think I would be much more open now, but like before, I was scared to be seen. Like I was doing a lot of hiding, a lot of running, I was ducking and dodging me. And so like coming before the presence of an individual like that would have been something that it would have just been too revealing.
Gotcha.
For me at that time, I feel like.
Okay.
So all this in my head, right? So creating all of this shit. So
I can relate.
because so much of his philosophies and what he talks about are things that I live by and I implement and I try so hard to see. Like when he talks, it's like jazz. I don't judge jazz music. Like getting into jazz made me shift like how I listen. It also shifted how my relationships, because when you're listening to Miles or you're listening to, Mingus or something, you don't enter into those spaces to judge. That's not what you're there for. You're there to observe and to understand to whatever degree you have the capacity to. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand, it's not because something's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. It's something wrong. And wrong might not even be the best word. Like it's a you thing. In the same way that when you're having a conversation with your lady or with your dude or whatever, you might not necessarily understand, but just because you don't understand doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means you've got to sit and give it more time. Right. And I feel like your dad's words in a lot of ways were like that for me. So I would sit, and if it didn't land, if it didn't land immediately, some of my favorite songs are songs I didn't like initially. Wow. Just for my own personal. So some of these nuggets ain't gonna be the deepest ones. Same with my relationship with my father, God bless his soul. Like the most profound shit he was ever telling me was shit when he wasn't even trying to be profound. When he was just laying them down. You know what I mean? And so your dad's words in a lot of ways are like, I'm connecting these dots for all of these things for me personally, because he did mean, he changed. I never met him, but through his words and through listening and through his passion and his connection to his purpose, I got to see what that looked and felt like, even the abrasiveness of it all. Yeah. And it was all beautiful. And he didn't give a fuck about how you felt about it. That wasn't going to be at the expense of what he felt in his heart in the way that it needed to be communicated at that time. Right. Most motherfuckers don't know what they need. Most motherfuckers don't know why they want what they want. and what they desire, and somebody come to you and speaking to you in a certain way, you don't know that's why you need that. But I could go on about this shit forever, so I'm gonna stop. Sorry about that.
No, I love it.
I rambled.
Love it.
There was something that your father said in one of the conversations with you, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. He was talking about one of the things he learned from Dr. King, and that was he would rather be killed than kill. What did that mean to you when you heard that? I'll just stop there.
I was very much in alignment with it. We grew up in an environment where, even the concept of why he chose to have his family become vegetarian was born out of, if I am saying I don't believe in killing, then I also don't believe in killing animals for food, And I don't think he was saying that no one should. He was clear that that was his path.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole civil disobedience as a path it just spilled over in other areas of his life. And I think he understood where the real power was in the spirit realm, because as a child, John Wayne was his hero. And there was a concept of white, male, Western violence and aggression that he associated with manhood as a child. That I think moving into his adulthood, realizing, damn, the most courageous shit he ever did was humble himself. The most courageous shit he ever did was allow himself to be vulnerable. And that for him was what's the word I'm looking for? That the power of vulnerability and surrendering to the higher force and connecting with that and recognizing that I don't have to say, I believe that God will protect me, but just in case I'm gonna have this gun. That those are two separate ideas. But let me say this. If you say, if someone were to say, I believe that God will protect me, and God gave me the intelligence and ability to think and do for myself, and whatever I choose to do physically is a part of that, that's a different conversation.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is much of what people do in physical aggression comes out of fear, and that ain't got nothing to do with God.
Right.
So if he's saying fear and God don't occupy the same space, I am unafraid, and which is why, hence we saw the marchers walking. It was more than a march. It was more than the idea that I think some people have of like, oh, we just marching and chanting. Things were shifting energetically because everything is energy. Everything is frequency. And frequency shifts everything.
Yeah, it does.
So the physical things that we see are just matter, vibrating matter, everything. And so I don't think we understand the extent to which the unseen is controlling the seen. That things moving are controlling the things that we believe are fixed. And so what I believe that he was saying is that for him, and again, he wasn't saying no one should kill. He was saying he didn't believe in that for himself because that was the path he was choosing, because he had already made an agreement with the spiritual realm. We got you. You, Dick Gregory, will never have to pick up a gun. That's not a part of your walk, because you have elevated beyond that. What a gun gonna do in the presence of what, you know what I'm saying? Which is why the fear in the eyes of the gunman, the legal gunman in this country, in the presence of a black grandmother who's walking and smiling and looking right at him, unafraid. So he was so fascinated by that because he didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
He never felt anything like that before. So it was so powerful for him. It was like somebody going on a fast for a week and saying, I can never unfast because this is so powerful. I got to do this for the rest of my life. He wasn't saying the fast is for everybody, but he was clear for him that he was going to be most powerful. So for him, he knew that in taking someone's physical life, for him, the karmic debt around that would be worth so much more than it would be worth. And that he would rather, knowing that his life was eternal, knowing you could only take my body once, I live forever. So I would much rather, if I'm choosing between taking your body or you taking mine, you go ahead and take mine, because I'm gonna be here.
And that's fucks with your brain too, to the opposition, because it's like when you don't fear death, what else do you have at that point?
Right.
And when you're moving in a way to where like your energy, if fear and God don't occupy the same space, you're literally moving with the God knowledge within you. That's a vibration. That is a motherfucking frequency that people around you, they won't necessarily be able to name it. And that was, I don't know how evolved. I admire, I think, more than anything in the context of that is the ability to align. For me, a lot of things are about alignment. And to align with a purpose in a way that way, whether fear, I don't know if it just goes away. I don't know. Or do you call it fear, or is it an awareness? Like whatever it is, there's a belief that the universe got you and you're good no matter what.
No matter what.
I think about that a lot, because I say struggle. I'm just gonna say struggle. I'm gonna stop trying to fight it. I'm gonna stop struggling with saying struggle.
Right.
I struggle with that.
Okay.
I sometimes, because I'm trying. There are these two ideas of me and of people who I'm trying to acknowledge, both sides of, mainly in myself, because I know that once I reconcile that within me, that it'll be reconciled outside. And the idea of all of that other stuff just being worked out, like all this shit gonna work. Once I work me out, once I get connected to my God shit, my universal shit, right. I'm good.
Right.
Because another piece of it that I thought about too was the egoic death. And how so much of the battles that are taking place between humans are spiritual and ego driven and all of those kinds of things, and practicing that from just a ego standpoint, I think it is a path, can be a path to just naturally just doing the physical piece as well. I don't need to be right. You know, I ain't gotta prove you wrong in order to be right. I don't have to posture up all of this old other shit. Just kill that dude. Like whoever he is, like he ain't shit no way. He ain't the real you. No way. So just let it go. And then once you let that go, you might, well, okay, what else can I let go? Okay, I can let this other thing go over here. What else can I let go? Oh, brother, you want to kill me, man? You good, bro. Just go ahead. I got, so,
I like that.
in the idea of trying to think about that, I'm thinking about all of the ways in which someone can die.
I love that.
Because that's the thing in me that I feel, once I accept, will die.
Me too. I love that.
Yeah.